Well, we're here and to take on our second part of a series on the book, based on the book, Emergence. Emergence, not Emergency. We're all familiar with that book. This is Emergence, 7 steps for radical life change. How many of us are up for a radical life change? As long as it's according to our preferences, right? Radical life change, it's kind of like... We have this desire for growth because it's seated in us, and we sort of know that. And there's some certain amount of excitement that you and I have about growing. But then there's this other part of us that's sort of like kind of the wet blanket of, I don't want to change. I want to grow and expand and evolve and all that. But do I have to change? And I actually had a talk title going for a while. It was, give me the growth, keep the change. Right? Really open and receptive to growth, but do I have to change? And of course, we know when we look at nature, and nature is the metaphor that we're working with in this series. We look at nature is that no growth happens without change, right? So if we could sort of like wrap our bigger self around this notion of growth, including what it asks of us, then I think we're then putting ourselves in concert with the divine life force that's wanting to live the fuller life that we are here to live. And so that's what we're being invited to consider in this series. And last week we talked about what emergence is, and we said that it is a natural unfolding of our divine potential. A natural unfolding of our divine potential, which is our true self. And that it's an evolutionary principle that brings the divine pattern within us into greater and greater expression. Now, doesn't that sound healthy and good? Yeah, especially the natural part. Because so often, I think we end up feeling that there's something missing or wrong with us or broken or not enough. We all understand that. And we go about thinking that if we could just fix ourselves, if we could just sort of modify the raw material of our life, that we would then somehow feel that we were okay. And so that's sort of always been this sort of outside-in approach to growth and to self-improvement. Like we were, a makeover project for, that if we could just figure out where all of our blemishes are and get those taken care of, and we could just polish up our act in some sense, that we would finally be lovable. People would just love us. And of course, if they loved us, then we'd love ourselves. You know how that works. And we would finally be acceptable in the eyes of the world and in our own eyes. And so we have plotted this life to try to, seeking and grasping at what we think life should look like and what life could be and how we need to change. And we've beat the K-pock out of ourselves in the process of trying to make ourselves worthy and whole and acceptable and lovable. And that's all so faulty. Because what we're trying to understand here as we've looked at this metaphor of the oak tree, and that the acorn has within it all that it needs to become this beautiful oak. The acorn does not go to self-improvement and self-help workshops. Doesn't hang out, at the booksellers going, my biggest dream is I want to be a big oak tree. And how can I do that? Because I'm just this scrawny little seed of an acorn. It's ridiculous, right, to think that way. And if you've held an acorn in your hand, have you ever stopped to think, how does it become this mighty oak? How can that be? How can this little thing become this great thing in all of its strength and all of its complexity? Well, when we begin to realize that it doesn't have a little mini model of an oak tree inside of an acorn. It doesn't have a miniature version of how it manifests. But what it has in it, it has intelligence, and it has energy, and it has potential, and it has willingness. It has an impulse to grow. and nothing to stand in the way of all of those things being given full sway, cooperation, and allowing all of those things to reach their maximum potential. That's all that is inside an acorn that allows it to become the mighty oak. And so that's a beautiful metaphor for us as we're trying to understand how can we become the grandest version of ourselves. We don't have to keep trying to fix ourselves. We have to become more in touch with the divine pattern that is already seated within us. And the energy and the intelligence and this impulse to grow that already knows how we can experience fully realized human beings. How we can bring forth all of the wisdom, all of the love, all of the peace, all of the joy. All of that's already in us. We don't have to bring it in from outside. So, it's been said lots of different ways, and I think one of my favorite quotes is from Robert Browning, who talks about how we see this completed vision as something that's already within us. And he says, to know consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, rather than effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. Because when I suppose that my well-being is outside of me, that it's locked in some person or some circumstance or something, then what I'm doing is I'm constantly trying to make my life be a better version of a limited self-image. Do you hear that? It's like, rearranging the furniture, in a house that's got a very small room, You can keep moving the furniture around, but it's still a small room. It's not going to get any bigger. What this kind of spiritual visioning that we're talking about is expanding the size of the room. It's about being able to see ourselves as these divine beings. And so we increase the footprint of our being, and we allow Spirit to build upon this expanded footprint, because now we have room to carry more of who we are. Instead of trying to just keep bringing in new modifications to our very constricted self-image, which only just frustrates us because we keep thinking time and time again, this is going to be it. This guy, this is the one. This guy is going to do it. Or this situation, or this amount of money, or this degree, if I get one more degree, if I get one more job. All of those things are working against this very profound oak tree divine pattern that's inside of me that's wanting to just be released, So if we can just get it and stop trying to make our life something else and get more in touch with what's wanting to emerge from us, then life tends to mimic the potential that we already are. So, in the book, he has this beautiful quote that says, a true vision is not a picture of what will be in the future. Because don't we sometimes think in terms of a vision being what will be in the future? But this is a different kind of vision. A true vision is a realization of what is in the timeless dimension of your consciousness. What is already in the timeless dimension of your consciousness. That's what we're interested in. That is the oak that is already in the acorn. And that is the divine being that is already seated in your consciousness. That is the fully realized child of God, son of God, daughter of God in the mortal being that we sometimes think that we are. So what we're here to do is we're here to extract the divine pattern and create the conditions under which, just like Acorn becomes a mighty oak. An acorn becomes a mighty oak. We know that they need certain conditions, and as we go forth into the coming weeks, including next Sunday, we're going to be talking about cultivating those conditions. So we're going to be creating everything that it takes for this to take place. it already is very natural, and it's, in other words, it's already seeded in us for this to take place. It doesn't need any instructions, but it does need congruent conditions. Conditions that are congruent for this growth to take place. So that will be our part. But the first part is for us just to acknowledge that the divine pattern is already within us. How many people are willing to open their mind to that this week and allow that just to be your reality? What about if it's just a working hypothesis, right? What if you just go, I'm not sure about it, but I'm willing to play with this. I'm willing to just play with the idea that who I am is already whole. That the love that I've been seeking from somebody and so is really the love that is within me that's been occluded. It's been precluded from expression because I've been outside in thinking. Because I have been investing in some version of love being something that's apart from me rather than that's what I am made of. And if I know that I'm made of love, then I know that my work must be to release the imprisoned splendor. Does this make any sense? But if I continue to think that how somebody talks to me or whether they bring me flowers or however they're being with me is a validation that I'm lovable, then I'm constantly going to be putting myself in a situation where I'm going to be what? Sorely disappointed. Because some days they're doing it really well, aren't they? And some days not so good, right? So this is really an adult program. Not that kind of adult, but you know, that's for the third service, and we don't have one. But the idea of adult meaning that we have to mature. We have to have a mature understanding of love, yes? And that mature understanding of love is that love is where? In me. Because I was made in the image and likeness of God. And what is God? Love. So if I'm made in the image and likeness of love, then why would I be looking for it in all the wrong faces and all the wrong places? There's a song there somewhere. Looking for love and all. I won't go into it. I can't compete. These guys will do it for you later after the show service. So that's the biggest one. But of course, every element of what we would consider to be a fully realized and fully expressed being is also true. So it isn't just about love, but it's peace of mind, it's creativity, it's expanded sense of possibility, it's joy, it's happiness, it's a sense of well-being. All of these things are seated in the acorn of our essential being. And it knows how to bring that forth if we but give it the support. First, we have to believe in it. Because if we don't believe in it, then we'll still be working with this false sense of self and trying to make it better and make it good and make it worthy and make it lovable. But if we can just let that go for a moment and say, what if? Just what if I am really a spiritual being? And being a spiritual being, then all that I am looking for is already seated in my true being. Now, what would it take then for me to release that imprisoned splendor? What would my spiritual path look like? So when we identify a desire, and this is an approach that I have used in my life and I've offered to other people in counseling scenarios, when a desire comes up, and one that's easy to use is one around money, because so many people seem to need more money and want more money. So let's say if the desire, and it's also referenced in the book, let's say the desire is for $1 million. And you say, if I just had $1 million, and so that's where you begin. But the practice is to ask a deeper question. Why do you want $1 million? The why question is to begin to move from what to an internal motivation, because now we're trying to get to the source of this desire. So you may say, well, because I want to buy a house, which of course is the minimum amount you need in Santa Barbara to buy a house. So you say, oh, okay, you want to buy a house. That's lovely. Let's ask the why question one more time. Why do you want to buy a house? And you think, and now you have to kind of go a little bit more deep in this question, because you think that isn't that a basic need, that we need a house? But what is the fundamental need, the emotional need that gets fulfilled by you having a house? Not just the physical. Because you could, obviously you could rent a house and have a place to live. But you said, no, I want to own a house. I think I just connected with the realty network here in Santa Barbara. They're trying to break in and see if they can meet me after the service today. And I don't have $1 million, okay? So this idea of why I want this house might be because I want to feel secure. A sense of security. That feels to be the base of this desire. Now you've moved from the physical realm and you've moved into the inner realm, into the inner satisfaction, where it's no longer just this physical thing, this materiality, but there's some legitimate kind of a emotional, spiritual quality called security. And we can all understand that. Doesn't everyone want to feel secure? Right. So now, if we identified it as being security, now it's in the realm of possibility that we can meet that need within ourselves. Is that not true? Following the premise now that it's seated within you as your wholeness and your well-being. Now, instead of having to come up with $1 million to buy a house, if the real deep need is for security, then we can work at the level of that. We can begin to say, have I ever felt secure in my life? Yes, and I can think of a time. So we think of a time when we were feeling secure. And we go into that experience, and so that we feel in real time the experience of security, feeling safe and secure and well taken care of. Maybe you're abiding in somebody's arms, or I have this grandmother image. My grandmother was a very large woman, and she used to swoop me up and hold me in her arms and just rock me and tell me, I love you, Larry. I love you, Larry. So I remember that, and that's my feeling of being cared for. It's time for a new board. We're getting a new soundboard, by the way, which couldn't come soon enough. We have the money, and we're going for it. Anyway, so if you have that image, and you can begin to recreate the experience of being secure now, not as a future event, which is the idea of visualization for some future thing, but now you feel secure. So now this is how you vision based upon feeling. So you walk now with the capacity as much as you can to feel secure. Instead of feeling insecure because you're associating it with something that's lacking in your life, you feel secure because you've been able to bring yourself to a feeling of security by using your spiritual toolbox, the wherewithal of your own being. Now that's the vibration that you're putting out into the universe. And do you think if you're putting out a vibration of security in the universe, that the universe is going to show you insecurity? No, it's going to show you representations or manifestations of security, yes? And that's then how the most authentic way of us creating our lives comes from our deepest spiritual truth instead of some imagined reality or circumstance or condition that we're only guessing would give us that internal experience of well-being. Because don't we just guess? It's like, pin the tail on the donkey. We're operating in the darkness of our lack of understanding of what we're really wanting and needing. And then we're also missing the opportunity to fulfill those needs that are within the capacity of our soul to fulfill. And so we can now change this whole focus of trying to make life look a certain way so that we can be okay, to getting in touch with the okayness that's already within us, and then allowing that energy of fulfillment and wholeness and well-being to be the vibration that goes out into the universe. And I'll tell you, folks, if you want your life to change in the way that is in concert with your deepest spiritual values, this is how we do it. We know this, don't we? Many of you know this. Many of you have already, done the prodigal son thing, gone off and tried to live life in a sense of separation and trying to take all the gusto you can from life and then hope that you'll finally feel rich and secure and happy. And it didn't work. Of course it's not going to work because you're dealing with an illusion. You're dealing with the idea that your well-being is apart from you and that it's represented by him or her or this or that. So those of us who are willing and ready, I hope you will join me on this journey as we begin to cultivate the conditions through which this seeded divine potential can emerge in us. Are you ready to emerge? Yes, in the most authentic way possible. Yes? Because isn't that who and why you've come here? I don't think that there's a better reason. And there's no better reason for a spiritual community to find its purpose and to manifest real change in the life of the community and the life of its people, which, by the way, are interlaced, than to help them realize and express their divine nature. Yes? Namaste. Blessings.